Hi, I'm Dr. R.G. Allen Wilson. You may recognize me as a leading relationship expert for TV programs such as CNN, The Today Show, Good Day Philly, Fox 29, Tamron Hall Show, Mel Robbins Show, and local and national radio shows, just to name a few. I want to invite you to a very awesome opportunity that will enhance your life. Having courageous conversations that connect is key for a healthy relationship with ourselves and others. Knowing the right strategies and techniques aren't as simple as we think. There are principles to understanding how we all think and feel. Right now, you can join in my free quarantine talks to learn what others spend thousands of dollars in therapy to know. Each day, while we are in quarantine at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can watch, listen, and learn tips that will help you get through this challenging time in our lives. Here's the good news. There is absolutely no cost for you to participate. Tune in on YouTube, Facebook, and the Gram at Ask Dr. RG. I look forward to seeing you join our crew, and that's connecting relationships for epic wins. Have a beautiful day on purpose, from my heart to yours. And good morning. This is Dr. RG, yours truly. Welcome to the Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. Today is August 20th, 2020. Woo! And this is the 71st episode of Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. Can y'all believe it? 22 weeks we've been doing this. 22 weeks of dealing with this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic in the midst of the, systemic racism pandemic. We're talking about two viruses here, and then the economic crisis that we're in, and, the school crisis, quite frankly, because kids are going back to school and parents are upset and just trying to figure out how to manage it all. So listen, welcome to my IG family. Welcome to my Facebook family. Welcome to my YouTube family. Do me a favor. We only ask, this is our community give back, that you go on over to YouTube and that you hit the subscribe button. Ask Dr. RG, AskDrArgie. Right? And then hit that notification bell so that you'll get the notifications. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know that we matter, our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. I see BJ on already. Good morning, BJ. Good morning, Mama Snokes. Good morning, everyone here. Listen, we're going to have a great show. I've been up already pretty early. If y'all know, I got my hair did. I got a little color, needed that. And Morgan, the husband, most importantly, likes it. So I'm appreciative of that. Shout out to my socially distant stylist who, has done a phenomenal job of maintaining her business while simultaneously meeting the needs of those persons who are in need of their hair getting done in a socially distant and protective way. So her name is Angeline Matt. I will put her in the chat if you all are interested as well. Give her a shout out. Good morning, Deborah. And so listen, we got a great all this week, we've been talking about how to relieve pressure points in the midst of a crisis, right? How do we do that? BJ says she loves my hair. Thank you. I thought it was kind of light, but I wasn't sure. So I got the stamp of approval from the hubby, and now y'all can weigh in as well. How do we relieve pressure points in the midst of a crisis? And this morning, we're talking about preventing relationship breakups with both family and friends due to this COVID-19 pandemic. There's been a lot of breakups, y'all. A lot of people are having some challenges. We talked about this morning on Good Day. What do you do when somebody has a party, when you want to go on vacation, when the kids are going back to school? Who wears a mask? Who doesn't wear a mask? We're going to be talking about all of that. I want you all to weigh in on those relationships. And we're going to have some courageous conversations about how do we maintain these relationships. So listen, tag a friend, share this video, let other people know what the crew is here for our quarantine talks. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. So stay with us. And welcome back. This is Dr. RG, yours truly. This is the Courageous Conversations Connect space. Welcome to our quarantine talks. I see you guys. I see you coming on. I see you, Charla. Thanks for joining our theme. If you are just coming on board, we've got our IG family, we've got our Facebook family, we've got our YouTube family here. Let other people know that we're on every Monday, every Wednesday, every Thursday at 10 a.m. This definitely helps with us building our platform so that we can really impact the masses. Today, we're talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. You all know that I spend the majority of my day working as a relationship expert, coach, transformational coach, and family therapist. I spend a lot of time doing this work. I work with individuals, I work with couples, and I work with families. And I know firsthand the stress that these two pandemics have caused our families, our loved ones, our friends, ourselves. I know the stress that we're under. That's why this week we've been talking about relieving the pressure points. We know that pressure bursts pipes. We know that every pressure point needs a relief valve. We need some relief here. And we know that when we are under this level of stress, that we're not the best versions of ourselves. And oftentimes we tend to then project onto other people. So subsequently, some folks are sometimes like cashing checks that they didn't write, right? Or writing checks that they didn't cash. Whatever way you look at it, oftentimes it's not a fair playing field when people are anxious, when they're frustrated, when they're worried, when they're not the best versions of themselves. And quite frankly, when they are uncertain about what's happening. And we are living in some uncertain times these days. We got some love, we're watching the DNC. Many people are watching the DNC and they're seeing for the first time, Kamala Harris making history for just any Black or brown woman, no matter what your political affiliation is, no matter what your position is. If you are a Black or brown woman, we have to be proud of what's happening and simultaneously a little worried about what's happening. And so that said, one of the things I want, and I see Sienta on, one of the things I want us to do is I want us to really think about how it is that we harness all of the positive energy that we can so that we start moving that energy in the right direction. Every time we come on, we're going to be talking not only about relationships, guys, but we're also going to be talking about the fact that we now have 75 days, I believe it is, until November 3rd. I'm not here to tell you who you should vote for, but I am here to say that many of the Black and brown and indigenous and Native people died for the right to vote. We also know that it's been we just celebrated on August 6th, 55 years. It was the 55th anniversary of the Voters Voting Rights Act, right? And so think about that. Many of us were born right around that time, and we were born into a world where Black and brown people didn't even have the right to vote. Think about that. That wasn't that long ago. So we need to vote like our lives depend on it, which then means that we need to be healthy. We need these 75 days, all hands on deck to be healthy. And my job here for us and the crew, connecting relationships for epic wins, is to have us be healthy, help us be whole, help us to be able to breathe in good energy and good oxygen and good feelings and good emotions, and breathe out negative energy in order for us to take our own hill. As my good friend, Senator Vincent Hughes says, take your hill. Whatever you can do, you do it so that we can move in the direction of still preserving our democracy and also the movement towards a different lived and shared experience where everyone has equity, where we have an even playing field, where we don't have systemic racism and where there are not social inequities. There are some people have the right to healthcare or education or economics and other people don't. So Sienta said yes to the positive energy and diversity politics. Vote health. She says Biden, Harris, and HU, HU, y'all see my hat back there, right? You all see it. What Saud, this young lady Saud, who's doing the darn thing with her business. And she says, y'all see it. So y'all see my hat back there. You all know that I'm an alumni of what I believe, just my belief, right? I have a right to my own opinion. I believe that Howard University is the best university and academic institution on the planet. That's what I believe. And so from that perspective, now no shade to any other HBCUs, because I think that they're all wonderful and excellent, and it gives us an opportunity to have a place at the table when we educate ourselves. Many of the older people who raised us said education is something that no one can ever take away from you. And so we got to rise up, as we talked about on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yeah, no, Wednesday. Rise up, and still we rise. Charlotte says she loves the hair. Thank you, Charlotte. Listen, I had to get a little color, had to get a little pop. My husband was saying like, "Oh, Arj, what you gonna do?" And so I was a little anxious about it, but here you go. I hope that you all like the new hairdo. Got some little color in there. Sianta said, "Say it, the Mecca." Absolutely, Howard University. So listen, we're going to get into our breathing. Please tell me in the chat, crew, who are you breathing with and who are you breathing for? Who are you breathing? We're breathing life in. We're exhaling the negative energy, and we're breathing in the positive energy. Who are you breathing for? I am breathing for all of those persons who have been impacted and affected by COVID-19, this coronavirus. I am breathing for all of those persons who have been impacted by violence, because violence is on the rise. So all those families that have been impacted by violence. And I am breathing for the consciousness and the soul and heart of our nation. That's what I'm breathing for. I'm breathing for anyone who taps into a consciousness that moves the positive energy into the space where we all go to the voting polls and we vote our conscience for the heart and soul of our nation. That's what I'm breathing for. Deborah says, I'm breathing for my family in California who are surrounded by smoke and close to the evacuation. Oh, I did see that. I didn't watch the news a lot yesterday, but I did see that in California, there are these fires going on. So yes, we're breathing for those, specifically Deborah's family, that are near the evacuation and they're being affected by the fires. So we're breathing for those families. Who else is telling me who you're going to breathe for? Let's get into our postures, guys. I want you to arch your back, get really comfortable. I want you to put your middle finger to your thumb or your one hand over the next on your lap or to your side and get really comfortable. BJ says breathing for the kids trying to do virtual learning with no teacher to meet them in person. Yeah, that's kind of hard. We got to breathe for all the teachers out there and all the children and all the parents that are struggling. Angie says she's breathing for family members who have COVID. I didn't know that. Well, we did. I think we heard that the other day. But Angie, we're breathing for your family members and all the family members that have COVID. Sienta said, breathing for sustainable energy and inclusion in our nation. Sustainable energy. I love that. That, you know, this is not a one-off, right? We need to continue to sustain the positive energy and move that into the polls on November 3rd. So that's what we're all breathing for. We're also going to, at the sound of my voice, when I count to 3, we're going to breathe oxygen into our nose, through our nose and out through our mouth. We're going to hold it for 8 seconds in honor of George Floyd and his family. We're still fighting for justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Rayshard Brooks. We have not forgotten about those persons who have been impacted and affected by police brutality. And I'm also praying for the men and women in blue who are good police officers that are working for community policing and trying to do the right thing to help us and to preserve and to protect us. I'm breathing for you all as well. I'm going to breathe good oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, but we're also going to breathe in hope and serenity and peace and calm. And we're breathing out fear and worry and frustration and pain and anger. Breathing for mental health. Absolutely. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. One more time. Make it count, crew. Breathe in. And breathe out. Excellent. Keep doing that throughout the day. It will help to expand your lungs. We know that COVID-19 is still out there. We know that this virus is not going away anytime soon. This virus is relentless. There will be a second wave. There are hot spots that are, swelling up in places where people have not abided by some of the CDC guidelines. There are even states that are red as well as orange versus yellow and green. So this virus is still out there. This virus doesn't care. It's non-discriminatory. It doesn't care who you are, old, young, black, white, polka dot, doesn't care. It doesn't care whether you are voting red or blue. It really cares about finding a host to take up residence and then to wreak havoc on that host body, and then to have that host, if they are asymptomatic, become super spreaders. That's what the virus is trying to do. And our job is to do our due diligence to not allow this virus to win. So let's get into our conversation, our Courageous Conversations. This is Courageous Conversations Connect Space, Quarantine Talks. Make sure other people know that we're here. Our crew is here for you, connecting relationships for epic wins. We're here for each other. And so today we want to talk about how do we prevent relationship breakups, right? I have seen more relationship breakups. We have always known that relationships were hard. We've always known that marriage is hard. We all have always known that long-term friendships or sustainable friendships are hard. I am one that says I don't necessarily believe that we need to stay in relationships for longevity or legacy or loyalty, right? I don't necessarily believe that, because if a relationship is abusive, right, it's not okay to say, well, just because I've been friends with you for 30 years, that means that I have to endure abuse from you. So the longevity, out. Legacy, we're just going to stay married because nobody in our family gets divorced yet. This person is abusive. That's not okay, or loyalty. However, I do believe that we need to fight for it. And when I asked you last week to think about what are you fighting for and what are you fighting against, right? When we think about legacy, longevity, and loyalty, let's make it count. If you're going to fight for it, especially in the midst of two pandemics, let's fight for the right thing and then figure out how to fight fair. And so we got some quandaries here, guys, crew. The quandary is that we are in unprecedented times. We are. Unless and there are some centurions, but unless you're 100 or over 100, then, or 102, if you will, then more than likely you are not here for the Spanish flu back in 1918, right? Which means that we've had some challenges with viruses. The coronavirus overall is not new. There are many coronaviruses, but this particular coronavirus, the COVID-19, is seeking to kill people, quite frankly. We've lived through Ebola, we've lived through Zika, we lived through H1N1. Many people, and some people have died from it. There's been other kinds of viruses. There's the flu, but nothing since the Spanish flu. And now we have COVID-19. And the insidious thing about COVID-19 is that you can be asymptomatic and become a super spreader. With these other viruses, you had to be really, really, really sick in order to spread it. In this particular situation, you could have no symptoms at all and still spread this, and spread it to someone who has underlying conditions or has a weakened immune system. That person may be older or younger, and that person could actually get very sick and die. So never before have we had to experience our loved ones in the hospital and we couldn't visit them. We couldn't advocate for them. We couldn't be with them. Or if our loved ones, Lord forbid, passed away, we couldn't even necessarily go to a funeral service to honor them. Never before have we had this situation where people were scared to go back to school. We've got college students who actually were excited about finally going back to school. They get back and then the college shuts it down because we know college students, their lifeline are their peers. Their lifeline are their friends. And they're actually built to socialize. So what they want to do is they want to party. Yes, they go to school to have a good time. We certainly, my HU crew, we had a great time when we were at Howard so many years ago, right? So much so that we've had 30 years of friendship where we continue to have a good time. So that's not the issue. The issue is that we're in uncertain, unprecedented times where this virus doesn't care. And so some of these young people have actually had private parties outside the college campuses, started spreading this virus because they're coming from hotspots. They're coming from red states or orange states, and now they're spreading it. And so this is hard. We're having to make hard decisions, and we're having to have courageous conversations. But guess what, crew? Your courageous conversations don't have to disconnect you. Your courageous conversations. I'm laughing at Morgan because he's moving his background because I told him that didn't look good. Your courageous. That's funny, babe. Your courageous conversations don't have to disconnect you.
People don't see what you see. So you understand, you're seeing stuff because you're an administrator. They can't see what I'm doing. So you're up here cracking up, busting your side in the middle of a conversation. I have no idea why you're laughing.
I was laughing because I saw Morgan in the background moving his background, his I don't know, his whiteboard, because I told him the other day when he comes on, it doesn't look good. But you all didn't know what I was laughing at. So I apologize. I had like a out of body experience.
I'm a train seal, babe. I'm a train seal.
Don't say that. That's what.
I'm a train seal.
Morgan says that, just an aside, this is a pin in it. Morgan says that the train seal, and then he says that he just does what his wife tells him to do. And I'm like, that is not true.
I'm smart man. All right.
Oh my God. All right, let's get back to this.
Okay.
Debbie said, we love your laugh. My laugh is crazy, right? My laugh is just like, it's off the chain. And I think it's because I spend so much time like being serious, and laughing really gives you good energy, that good energy that we're talking about. So sometimes I just like give this bellyache laugh, like no, like it's no tomorrow. And I appreciate that you like it. I think it sounds really crazy, but I also feel like it's important, right? To just kind of let that good energy out. So anyway, back to the conversation about how do we prevent these breakups? Well, I want you all to share in the chat if you've had an experience where someone has invited you to a party, invited you on vacation. Someone has either judged you for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or if you've judged somebody else for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. I was talking about this on Good Day Philly this morning and I was reading several articles yesterday, specifically about how this pandemic, it has really served to fracture some relationships. You're now, and I always say the extent to a healthy relationship is not how well you do when things are good. It's how well you do and whether you can preserve that relationship when things are bad, whether it's a relationship with your friends that have become your family, as I call it, whether it's your actual family, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your partner, your business partner, or your partner in love and life. The extent to a healthy relationship, and relationships are hard, is not how well you do when things are good. It's how well you do when things are bad. DJ says, it is what it is. Happy wife, happy life. so Seal, it is. Oh my God, that is too funny. I don't know why I feel like so bubbly today, but I mean, I'm going to be saying the hashtag it is what it is for a while, because Michelle Obama dropped the mic in her speech the other day in the DNC. And so now it's the it is what it is now. But the truth is, yeah, these relationships. So here's an interesting fact, crew. There's a neuroscientist at Brigham Young University, and he said that ambivalent relationships related to combining affection and hostility, like so many family ties, can create chronic stress causing physical damage. Think about that. Because if you're experiencing chronic stress, meaning day in and day out, we know about PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, but I've coined the term CTSD, continual traumatic stress disorder. And think about the stressors that we're dealing with the economic distress, the food insecurities, the racial the racial unrest, if you will, the systemic racism that's happening that is also being super spreaded around the nation. And then on top of that, we have this coronavirus that we're all reeling from, because we now have over 175,000 people dead and 5.5 million people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. And that's just in the US. So, yes, we have a lot of anxiety, but add that insult to injury. And now think about your relationships, which many of us treasure, right? Our relationships not only allow us to survive, but oftentimes our relationships keep us thriving, not just surviving, but thriving. And when those relationships are challenged, when they're in jeopardy, if you will, because we're now in a space where we're not the best versions of ourselves or other people aren't, then the relationships become ambivalent, right? Where you have infection on one hand, but you have hostility on the other, and that can impact us physically. We know chronic stress impacts us physically. We know that when we have this constant cortisol levels going up, constant adrenaline levels going up biochemically, we know that when it affects our parasympathetic nervous system, so that our amygdala, as Dr. Gail Logan said the other day, is compromised, then that affects our immune system. And what do they say, the experts at the CDC and Dr. Fauci, what do they say is the number one barrier to, I guess it wouldn't say barrier, but the number one way in which people can be compromised by coronavirus, it's when our immune systems are compromised. So think about the correlation between our relationships and our immune systems. Sometimes people don't think about that. They are like, okay, it's just a relationship. It has nothing to do with our physiology, but it has everything to do with our physiology. Our emotional and our mental health and well-being is directly correlated with our physical health. And our physical health has to do with our wealth, right? And so when we look at that as a correlation, then we have to think about, okay, we've got to figure out how to preserve our relationships. And we need to do that really quickly, because we need our relationships not to just survive, but to thrive. Sienta says, as a healthcare worker, I'm constantly slaying my community about not wearing mask face or face coverings. It disgusts me to know that it's detrimental. And I get it. I think that, Sienta, one of the things that I said this morning is, when we're dealing with this issue of masks, let's just deal with that for a moment, right? Since you brought that up to the crew. One of the things that we have to recognize is that we really don't have control, right? We think we do, but it's a little bit of an illusion. We don't have control over other people, unfortunately. We may have some control over our children because we are in the executive subsystem, so we get to make some of the rules, if you will. But the truth is, love, light, truth, and accountability, that equals hope and freedom. And so there is a way, I believe, because we've got to ask our question, what's your end goal? And if you come at people with judgment and labeling and character assassination and shaming and blaming, even though it's hard not to be judgmental, when you come at people that way, then oftentimes you don't get the end result that you're looking for. And what we're looking for is, we're looking for compliance, but we're also looking for connection. Remember, connections matter. And so even when Morgan and I are talking, oftentimes we will say in the beginning of a conversation, especially when it's tense, what do we give a qualifier? What's your end goal? What's your end game? What are you really trying to accomplish? Are you trying to bridge the gap, right? Remember, we say in our crew, are we helping to harm, or are we healing the hurt? In bridging the gap, are we helping to harm, or bridging or healing the hurt, if you will? And so I start by saying, when it comes to this mask issue, think about these things. Try, if you can, to be compassionate and considerate.
versus controlling and confrontational. Think about that. Try to be compassionate and considerate versus controlling and confrontational. Because every time we confront something, it does not have to be confrontational. There really is a way to have a courageous conversation that connects you versus disconnects you. Refrain from labeling and blaming, those who do or don't wear masks, right? Focus on who you are and who you're responsible for so that you then begin to care less about what you can't control versus caring more about what you can control. And then focus on your energy. You all know we talk a lot about energy in our crew, connection relationships for epic wins. So we've got to conserve our energy because the truth is, here's the fact, guys. There's going to be a next wave of this COVID-19. We're still, believe it or not, 6 months in to the first wave, even though you're seeing hot spots and you're seeing surges. So we got to conserve our energy. If you're going to be in a fight, you need to refuel, you need to retool, you need to recalibrate in order to go back in the fight. Santa said the end game is empowering and educating our public health agenda. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what happens, Santa, what happens, crew, is sometimes we get emotional, and I get it. It's hard not to personalize it when somebody is saying, it's my right to not do this. And therefore, they then, the next statement is, I can do what I want to do, when I want to do, and how I want to do, knowing that your rights are influencing or impending on our ability to be healthy. Back when people said you can't smoke in buildings anymore, people were really upset. But the truth is, the Surgeon General said it's harmful to your health and people can die from secondhand smoke. And now it's the law of the land that you can't smoke in buildings. And so sometimes it takes a minute to get there, but do we have time to get there? Santa says, Dr. RG, thanks for your insight. And I'm going to implement more compassion. Absolutely. And thank you for joining. Thank you, crew, for being a part of this conversation, this courageous conversation. It's important. It's important that, as Mahatma Gandhi said, to one person, or he said, we must be the change we wish to be in others. And I often like the saying, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. You only takes one person thinking about being compassionate and considerate to change a dynamic. So let's think about the end game of this. And when we come back, I want you all, our crew, to share where you fell short. Share a story or an experience where you were judgmental, where you personalized, where you internalized something around a conflict related to this more recent pandemic. And let's see if we can unpack it. Let's see if we can come up with a strategy. And let's see if we can move you forward in a healthy relationship versus a destructive relationship. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, we are back.
Hey guys, this is Dr. RG here, yours truly, for the Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. This is the 71st episode of Courageous Conversations Connect Space, and we are in our 26th week since we all started this journey together, our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. I wanted you guys to share a story of how this is affecting you, how this is affecting your relationships, whether it be your family, whether it be your friends, whether it be your coworkers, whether it be your partners. I can't imagine that being in the midst of the collision between two pandemics is not impacting us, because we know when we're anxious, when we're upset, when we're worried, when we're fearful about what's uncertain in the world, that often causes us to be not the best versions of ourselves or other people. And where we could be compassionate and considerate, sometimes we end up being controlling and confrontational in a way that doesn't often get us what we want. So BJ says, you never know someone else's battle. So I think sometimes you feel defeated when you don't get the outcome you expected. So leading with kindness is always important, and having compassion is needed. Absolutely 1000% agree, BJ. So let's talk about that, because BJ gave us, I think, a very valid perspective. How do we really know what people are going through? How do we really know what's happening in someone's head, what's happening in their heart, what's happening in their mind, body, and spirit, what's happening in their world? And sometimes what happens, especially when we're in the world of social media, because people feel like they can say what they want to say, how they want to say it. And I find that we've gotten to the place where we've become very cruel with our words and our actions, right? And remember, we here at Crew, we believe that we should cut each other some slack. We believe, I believe, and I hope that you do too, that we need to show up in a different way. We need to listen, learn, and lead in a different way. Y'all know what slack means. We need to acknowledge where we've fallen short, but also acknowledge how far we have to go so that we can appreciate the humanity of this moment of what we're experiencing, and then be on a mission to make a difference and be change agents. That's what acknowledgement means. And then we need to be committed to it, committed to growing through this together, committed to the getting to the other side, not abandoning it, not letting the relationships go just because they're hard. And then finally, of course, the K, as BJ said, we need to be kind. We need to be kind to ourselves. We need to be kind to other people. And we need to recognize that this is not easy. Just like Michelle Obama, my forever float, said, this is not easy. She was talking about the job of the highest office in the land. But I got to tell you, just like my friend Senator Vincent Hughes says, take your own hill. What that means is, in your small corner of the world, what can you do to be a kinder, more gentler version of yourself, a better version of yourself? Dr. Maya Angelou said, I did the best that I knew how to do. And when I knew better, I did better. So how about we begin to educate ourselves, gird up, and start learning what we need to learn in this time that is unprecedented, where we're dealing with two pandemics, so that we can do better. So that when we get out of this, and we will, remember, I said this from the very beginning, this is a marathon, not a sprint, but this too shall pass. And when we grow through it to the other side, what will people say about you? What will you say about you? Will you say that you grew? Will you say that you were kind to people? Will you say that you were compassionate and considerate? Or will you say, or other people say, you just were inconsiderate, you controlling, you were confrontational, you actually used your fear to hurt people, right? Used your fear to cause more harm than good. And you came out of this bitter, not better. I hope that people don't say that about me. But what about you? I think the both folks in this crew, we want to do better. That's why we come on. For the first time in history, we are dealing with something where we have to band together, because there's a virus out there, two viruses, that is seeking to destroy us and our relationships. And I hope that we make a decision to commit to not letting that happen, and not labeling people and judging people and blaming and shaming people. Dr. Gail says, good morning, Dr. Orange. Good morning, Dr. Gail. Angie says, yes, hurt people hurt people. Absolutely. So tell me, guys, what situation have you dealt with? Is it your anxiety about going back to school? Have you told yourself in your head that you don't understand how some parents can send their kids back to school when you would never do that? Or have you basically gotten so anxious that you say, okay, I'm going to figure this out, send my kids back to school, but now you feel guilty about it? You know, there are some feelings, some toxic emotions that don't help us, that more or less hurt us. So if that's your story, to share your story about school decisions. Well, what about vacation? Have you been invited to go on vacation lately? And what did you say? What did you do? Did you give the unapologetic no without guilt? Or did you concede and conform because somebody else felt like, hey, it's not a big deal, and now you're regretting your decision? I talk about that in the book, Courageous Conversations Connect. I talk about people pleasers, people that tend to say yes out of fear versus no out of love. I want to say that again to my IG family, to my Facebook family, to YouTube. Sometimes we say yes out of fear versus no out of love, right? Yeah. Um, you know, we talked about this morning on Good Day Philly. I was on with Mike Jarrett and Alex Holly and Karen, and they were asking me questions about like how do we preserve relationships when we're so fearful, right? How do we say no but still preserve the relationship? Or if someone doesn't agree with our decision, how do we be okay with that if they don't agree with the decision? So sometimes that comes up, or that's been coming up, especially in therapy when I've been working with clients around should they go on vacation, should they not go on vacation? It's come up with regards to parties, because remember in the very beginning there were a lot of drive-bys, right? Now people are relaxing it and they're having more parties and things like that. By the way, shout out to one of my besties, Candy Manning. It is her birthday today. I am so excited for her to be experiencing another trip around the sun. She is probably one of the most beautiful human beings I know on this planet. And I wish her a wonderful and phenomenal birthday. Please wish her a wonderful and phenomenal birthday as well. It's not easy to have these celebratory moments in the midst of a pandemic. And yet at the same time, we ought not stop. We should not celebrate ourselves or our moments. We just have to figure out how to do it in a healthy way. So shout out to my girlfriend, my bestie, Candy Manning, who is celebrating her birthday today. She's a person that would give you the shirt off her back. She has, she's one of those persons that is just a giver. And I talked to her this morning and I said, listen, doctor's orders, I need you to lay on your hammock. I need you to chill out. I need you to relax. I need you not to work. I need you to put your oxygen mask on first and let people do for you and take care of yourself on your special day. So shout out to her. Angie says, we choose not to go on vacation. I've been watching travel shows to dream about future vacations. And that's a wonderful way to do it, Angie. Making a choice, like not hating on anybody else because they chose to go, and then figuring out how you're going to create your oasis and dream and put into motion what you're going to do, let's say in 2021. What about parties? Have you been invited to parties? Have your children been invited to play dates or sleepovers? What about the mask? We've talked about that. So here's some things. I want to hear your story, guys. How are you dealing with it? How are you uncomfortable when you say no? Do you say yes, right? Out of sort of fear of whether the person will like you or not, or be mad at you or not, versus love for yourself, right? You can say no out of love for yourself and your family and be okay with that. But peer pressure is real, y'all. A lot, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a young adult, whether you're an older adult, peer pressure is real. And by the way, there's really nothing wrong with wanting that companionship, wanting to connect, wanting to be in relationship with others. That's what we do as human beings. Yet at the same time, your actions could cause a reaction that you don't want to deal with in the end result, right? And so Lenice, hey Lenice, she's on Lenice Stone and says, I say no out of fear of the virus, right? No, but I get you, Lenice, and no out of fear of the virus, but your no is also out of love for yourself. See, when you love yourself, you're going to be able to make good decisions that have you in mind and your family in mind, even if they're hard decisions, even if it's a courageous conversation. The other thing I say to people is that this virus, this pandemic, has caused people to really reevaluate their relationships, right? I don't believe that people should be in relationships, right, past their expiration date. And oftentimes you've had to deal with this reality of asking yourself the question, do your relationships add and multiply or subtract and divide? Do your relationships add, we're going to unpack that in a minute, multiply or subtract and divide? And if your relationships are on the side in the midst of this pandemic where they're creating division or subtracting from you or making you feel bad, then maybe you need to reevaluate the relationships and maybe they don't belong in a front row seat of your life. But if they're adding, if they're multiplying, if they're enhancing, if they're elevating, if people are speaking life into you versus speaking death into you, those are the relationships that you need to be holding on to. Dr. Gale says, Dr. RG, I've learned it's necessary to acknowledge and be accountable for the mistakes I've made. And at the same time, understand origin of it so there is growth. I love that, Dr. Gale. How many of us need growth? We need to understand when we make mistakes, that's about the acknowledgement, and then get busy with learning the lessons so that we don't make the same mistakes over and over again, so that doesn't impact our relationships. Angie says, our daughter at college is 2 doors down from an off-campus house that has COVID cases. She's really stressed. School just started Monday. Angie, so we're going to be praying for your daughter, number one. We're also going to be praying and breathing for those COVID cases that are 2 doors down from your daughter. And I kind of believe that, quite frankly, we've got to be adaptable. Y'all remember when we, in the very beginning, started talking about the SSRs? I'm going to get back to that. We're going to start doing that again. The SSRs, which is the safety care plan, the self-care plan, and the relational care plan. We started that in the very beginning of this process of quarantine talks. And we also talked about the 5 A's, right? And I think that that's relevant now because we're having these resurgence, that you have to be accepting of what it is, right? Be accepting of your scenario and what is happening right now in real time so that you can make appropriate adjustments in your mindset. So for all those kids that are going back to school, I'm preparing them that you may not be in school for the full semester. You may have to adjust and then adapt very, very quickly. Tap into what's going on to you, tap out, and then make that adaptation so that you can come up with strategies and skills to keep yourself safe. And then have an appreciation for, one, what you've learned in this process, what we've all learned as part of the crew. And then acknowledge, of course, a new attitude. Be grateful. We need to have an attitude of gratitude for those people who have either not sick, you should be grateful for that, but also for those people who've come down with this virus and they've grown through it or they've gotten through it. We need to be grateful for those people. And then, of course, the struggle that we are enduring together, it's hopefully going to bring us closer together versus divide us and move us further apart. Karen says, I keep learning that some relationships are one-sided. When people need support, everything is cool. Interesting point, Karen. Very, very good point. So let's unpack that. When we're talking about the one-sided relationships, there are a lot of them, right? You all do know, the crew does know that there are more takers out there than givers. There are more inconsiderate people out there than considerate people. And just like I keep this messaging in my head on a regular basis that Mahatma Gandhi said, excuse me, guys, we must first be the change we wish to see in others. So before we're peering over into other people and what they're doing, we need to focus on ourselves. How do we level up on our humanity, our kindness, our being graceful or gracious, our being considerate of other people? We need to be that change. And we also definitely need to learn that there will be people that will not give to us in the way that we give to them. And that's the mistake sometimes that we make. We think that because we've done all of this, that surely when we need something, that they're going to come to the rescue. And oftentimes they don't. But here's what I would say about that. Just because the support, the affirmation, the lifting up doesn't come from the people that you think it's going to come from, doesn't mean that it won't come. It doesn't mean that it won't come from other people. And we need to preserve ourselves in order to deal with the challenges that are coming our way. So there's this term that I just learned that, people are kind of labeling. What is your risk tolerance? Think about what your risk tolerance is within all of these challenging times that we're going through. And from that risk tolerance, you can then determine some of the decisions that you're comfortable making and what you're not comfortable making, right? So there are labels out there, and I don't encourage that you use these labels, but I want to educate you so you know what it looks like when you see it, right? So there's one label, people are labeling people irrationally optimistic, right? So think about that. You're optimistic. I sometimes people call me an optimist, right? but they're tagging on to that you're irrational, like that nothing is going to happen out there. And when you go to extremes, oftentimes you miss the mark because the point is to find common ground. So that's one term. And then the other term out there is being a hysterical alarmist, meaning that you're sort of histrionic, that you're not going anywhere. And I think there's some common ground somewhere in between that allows us to identify what is the level of risk that we're willing to take and then be able to live with that so that we can ultimately reset our mindset. Charlotte says, yes, there is. People can be selfish. Karen says, my risk tolerance varies, sometimes high, sometimes low. Jenna's on. Jenna says, morning, love, blessings to you. Love the hair color. Thank you so much, Jenna. And then Deborah says, the lighter hair looks nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate your words of affirmation. I don't take that lightly. I was a little scared to go a little lighter, but I did it and it worked out well. Well, considering that I don't have a high threshold for taking risk, if you will. The hubby is more risk tolerant than me, but I like what Karen said, which is that your risk tolerance can vary. It sometimes can be high, it sometimes can be low, and sometimes that depends, really, quite frankly, on the things that are going on, the information that is out there. So when we think about like the school decisions, for example, try to acknowledge the difficulty in making the decision. This decision is not an easy decision to make. We are in very unprecedented times, and we don't have a guideline or a rule book on this, a blueprint. We haven't been here before. So cut ourselves some slack on that and then agree to disagree without judgment. That some people will make one decision and others will make another. And if you don't agree with that decision, you don't have to be nasty about it. You do have to then say, for me or for my family, we're going to have to create a little bit more physical distance, and maybe not necessarily emotional distance, but physical distance, so that perhaps the way in which we connect is we go back to Zoom. Cut us some slack. We need to cut ourselves some slack. Remember that everyone's circumstance is different, and that we really do have to focus on what matters most so that we don't get into the weeds about the differences. As far as vacations, guys, you got to weigh the risk to benefits. You got to figure out what's fact or fiction, because the information is constantly changing, and then use the information to your benefit. Don't be obtuse to the information. Don't just follow and swallow. Don't just think about it without really weighing in on whether it makes sense or not. Try to make sense from all the nonsense so that you can actually determine if you're okay with the consequences and ultimately identify the deal breakers. If you are planning on going on vacation and you feel like it's going to put you in jeopardy, it's okay to say no and back out, because someone broke the deal, if you will. They breached this agreement, and you're saying, I'm not okay with this. It's okay. Jen says, I reset my mindset by doing meditation, writing in my journal, talking to God, and most of all, talking to my friends and family. To me, family is everything. And I agree. I agree that family is everything. And I think that Jen, that when we think about family first, we also think that if you're family, then you'll understand my position. And we can agree to disagree and we can find alternative ways to stay connected versus disconnected. A lot of times fear just drives us. Fear is in the back seat, right? We're, forgetting everything and running with it, or fear sometimes stands for false evidence appearing real. So try not to project your fears onto others when you're thinking about these parties and the milestones. It's wonderful to celebrate birthdays and graduations and babies and marriages and all those. This is a season of celebration. So we just have to find alternative ways to celebrate, and also be clear and confident and concise with your why. Why are you making this decision? So that you're not deflecting or blaming and shaming, and that you're okay with making your decision without attacking anyone else. Having an unapologetic no. Deborah says, what sets me off is the tone of someone's comment. I know I should just walk away, but it's hard. You kind of like Morgan in some ways. It is hard to walk away, Deborah, but I also think it's beneficial, because I always ask people to think about the end game. What do you want to get out of this? And do you want to be in a relationship with folks, or do you want to be on a battleship? Do you want to be in constant battle? Pick and choose your fights. because we don't have infinite energy. And sometimes, quite frankly, like I said, the second wave is coming. We're in the midst of this voter suppression stuff that's going on with the post office, and we're, thinking about our future. We have to stay in the fight. So we have to ask ourselves where, what, why, and for, and who you are fighting. And if it doesn't fit within that scope, then it may be okay to walk away because it's just not worth it. You got to ask yourself, and I do this all the time. I do my litmus test. You all know the five things that I ask you to do. Pause, breathe, reflect, identify your triggers, and then respond. If you do that 5-step process, you can determine whether or not this is worth the fight or not, whether it's worth your energy, and then figure out how to walk away with a level of integrity, knowing that you've ultimately done the right thing because you got bigger fish to fry, you got a bigger fight to wage, and you've got to conserve your energy in order to be healthy, in order to move forward to the future. Because the end game, when we're talking about the ultimate end game, IG family, Facebook family, YouTube family, the ultimate end game here with these two viruses of coronavirus, COVID-19, and systemic racism, the ultimate end game is not just survive this. The ultimate end game is to thrive this, right? To beat it, to grow through it, and to be better, not bitter. That means we want to thrive. And you can't thrive if you're sitting around angry and bitter and frustrated and overwhelmed. All of that is going to move you into a space of chronic stress, elevated cortisol levels. It's going to impact your parasympathetic nervous system. You're always going to be on fleek, flight, or fight. Flight, fright, fight, fleek, all the S, right? And it's not going to help you to feel that positive energy that allows you to have some peace and calm and serenity. So think about identifying the outcomes. What are those outcomes? What's the pros and cons? Resist that peer pressure to conform just because somebody wants you to. You don't have to do anything simply because someone wants you to. You are your own person and you are responsible. And when you think about the outcome, are you willing to deal with those consequences? So if you make a firm decision, be okay with it. Agree to accept those consequences, whether it be that you get sick or someone that you love gets sick, or whether it be that maybe you lose a friend over it because they don't think the same thing that you think. And maybe if you can lose them, then they were never yours to begin with. So adapt. We have to adapt to the change, and we have to go back to the basics. The basics are love, light, truth, and accountability. If you love yourself and you love others, you are giving out light, not casting darkness. If you're speaking truth to power, to yourself and to others, if you're holding yourself and others accountable in a healthy way, in a caring and loving and compassionate and considerate way, then that brings all of us hope and freedom so that we can wage a war that we can win. It is not good to lose the battle, or how do they say, you won the battle, but you lost the war. Well, the end game is we need to win this war, and we need to do it in a way where we're healthy when we come out on the other side of it, right? So Tanya Rodriguez, hey, Tanya, thanks for joining. She says, I love Thrive This. Awesome. Jen says, I'm fighting for our country. And with being said, IG, I'm going to vote like my life depends on it, because it does. Absolutely. Our lives depend on it. Every single one of us. We're voting for the heart, soul, and spirit of our democracy. We are voting our conscience in order to heal our nation. And we're voting to heal ourselves. So let's do it, guys. Let's continue to thrive in this space. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to give you some quick information when we come back. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. R.G. Allen Wilson. You may recognize me as a leading relationship expert for TV programs such as CNN, The Today Show, Good Day Philly, Fox 29, Tamron Hall Show, Mel Robbins Show, and local and national radio shows, just to name a few. I want to invite you to a very awesome opportunity that will enhance your life. Having courageous conversations that connect is key for a healthy relationship with ourselves and others. Knowing the right strategies and techniques aren't as simple as we think. There are principles to understanding how we all think and feel. Right now, you can join in my free quarantine talks to learn what others spend thousands of dollars in therapy to know. Each day, while we are in quarantine at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can watch, listen, and learn tips that will help you get through this challenging time in our lives. Here's the good news. There is absolutely no cost for you to participate. Tune in on YouTube, Facebook, and the Gram at Ask Dr. RG. I look forward to seeing you join our crew. And that's connecting relationships for epic wins. Have a beautiful day on purpose. From my heart to yours.
Hey there, guys. This is Dr. RG here. We have had a wonderful conversation on our platform, Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. This was our 71st episode. Believe it or not, we're in our 22nd week. Morgan says we're not in quarantine anymore. Sometimes I feel like I am still, but our 22nd week since this started. And I just thank God for our crew. I thank God for you all in terms of connecting relationships for epic wins. Can you repeat the risk tolerance concept? So I'll do that. I'll leave you guys with that. So thank you, Santa, with that risk tolerance concept. Dr. Gale says, in a relationship, I want to make sure that I get her in a relationship. We have to consider the other person's frame of reference. What was their life experience like? What did they have to adjust or adapt? And the adaptation, for example, in a dysfunctional family or relationship has helped them to survive. So coming from strength perspective, the person's resilience, the person just needs to process and develop the new social and communication skills, while at the same time know that he or she is a strong survivor and can learn new ways to communicate. I love it. I love it. And so, and Jen, I think it was Jen, somebody said, Sienta said, can you repeat the risk tolerance concept? So when you all think about risk tolerance, I want you to consider a couple of different things. A lot of times risk tolerance is, people are calling that someone is either irrationally optimistic or hysterically an alarmist. And the truth is that once we identify our risk tolerance, then we can determine for ourselves what that decision making looks like. We can weigh the risk to benefits. We can determine for ourselves what's separate fact from fiction. We can then use the information to aid us, and then we can determine if the consequences we are okay with them. Whatever those consequences are we okay with them? And then ultimately identify your deal breakers. Once you do that with your risk tolerance, you can then begin to figure out if you are able to say yes to whatever your invitation is, whether it's going back to school, vacation, whether it's wearing a mask, whether it's not, whether it's going to a party, whether you're okay with it and you can say yes, or whether you have to say no, right? And when you do say no, what I am encouraging people to do is share the unapologetic no without guilt. I want to say that one last time, and I want to leave you guys with that. Share the unapologetic no without guilt. Because we say sometimes yes out of fear. Fear for whether people will like us, or fear whether they will leave us, or fear if they'll be mad at us, versus no out of love for ourselves. Never say in a relationship, just because, or for longevity, or legacy, or loyalty. Some relationships we are in far beyond their expiration date anyway. And so share your unapologetic no without guilt. And if people can accept that, then those are people that you need to keep in your crew, because they are elevating you, right? They are, adding, not subtracting. They're multiplying, not dividing. But if not, if you say no because your risk for tolerance level is not at a high level, then hey, it's got to be okay. You still can own your own compassion for that relationship, even if it was meant to be only a seasonal relationship and not a lifetime relationship. Well, listen, guys, I want you to continue to breathe, continue to use your exercises, continue to have a beautiful day. Know that Morgan and I love you. It's nothing that you can do about it. I appreciate that you all like my new hairstyle. My color is popping, so I appreciate that. I'm about to transition to see clients. And so if you know anyone that's looking for clients, please let us know, or looking for a therapist, to please let us know. You can contact us at connectionsmatterllc.com. Also reach us on our phone number, our business number, 215-789-6999. I'm still seeing couples on the online platform, families and individuals, and still doing coaching. And if you really want to have a courageous conversation that helps you connect, get this book. I think it's a good book, if I do say so myself. It's written by a really, really powerful Black woman. And so go to drrgconnects.com if you want to get this book, or if you want to give it to a friend, and continue to have the courageous conversations that connect. Listen, have a beautiful day. We will see you on Monday. Beautiful day from our heart to yours on purpose.